How are you now? It's James Whelan here, occasional talking head for smallcaps.com.au. And today we are joined by Troy Whittaker, Managing Director of Whitecliff Minerals, an ASX-listed exploration company with some excellent copper projects in Canada. The company has been making headlines with a recent string of announcements, including new project acquisitions and promising drilling results. Troy, it's great to have you on the network for the first time.
James, thanks very much. It's great to be here.
No, fantastic. I've got to get myself one of those hoodies, mate. Get it in the mail as quick as you can, please. But we will
Absolutely
get straight to it if we can. And this is a really good overview for our small caps viewers. Just to give a brief run through of exactly what you've got going on. First off, your first Whitecliff Minerals first time on Small Caps Network. Could you please start us by giving what do you do? Give us a brief overview of the company and your journey to date.
Yeah, for sure. So Whitecliff Minerals, I got involved in the company alongside a couple of the other directors, back end of 2023, 2024. Then it was sort of capped at $7 million. We had our eye on a couple of really prospective projects in the north of Canada. Once we got the company, Whitecliff, we went out and staked a couple of projects organically. So there was no VEN, there was no royalty, which is always good for shareholders. And since then, we've started to, develop an exploration campaign. We were able to get on the ground last year and do some field samplings and rock chips. And this year, went to a drilling campaign, which we'll touch on shortly.
Well, get straight into it. The expression, I'm having none of it, I suppose is probably going to be relevant. Do you want to walk us through the current project pipeline and what you've got, what you're currently targeting? So
we've got two projects up there in the north of Canada, and I'll gloss over Great Bear very, very quickly because it's not it's something that we don't want people to lose sight of. Great Bear, we came across the area. It was identified by an independent agency, the Canada State Survey, as having the highest probability for IOCG and U type mineralizations, urine oxides, which equate to a copper, a gold, a silver. And then obviously the uranium. We did some sampling up there middle of last year, and we pulled back, samples that had combinations of upwards of 40% copper, upwards of 30 grams a ton of gold, and then, decent smattering of silver as well. And, that as a unit is quite exciting. Then outside of that, Great Bear is known for having historical uranium production, which we're yet to actually put the foot down and explore. And saying all that, we also hit 7% in the field sample of the Great Bear. So we kind of gloss over that now as the focus is fully on Ray. And the intro to that is just across the border, as you say, Nunavut, hour and a half from Yellowknife, an industrial hub, flying onto our own airstrip. And that's where the project area lies. And we've had some fairly decent results over the course of the first 6 months of this year.
We'll get straight to that. Now, you've recently announced the mobilisation of 2 drill rigs at the Ray project. What are the key objectives for that drilling campaign?
If we sort of just cycle back to March, April of this year, we had 1 drill rig up on site, and that was an RC rig, just targeting some of that shallow at-surface mineralisation. Some of the results from there were world-class. I think 175 metres at 2.5%, 90 metres at 4, 105 at 2. They're extraordinary results. And so, mobilising the rigs to site was really to expand on what that campaign was. It was a limited campaign, only about 1,500 odd metres over a very, small distance. Having the 2 rigs up there now allows us to really step out along strike, as well as test some of those more deeper structures.
And I've seen it mentioned a lot through the website and on the company announcements, the Hulk target. Do you want to tell us why it's such an exciting opportunity?
For sure. So Hulk, that's when we start to talk about, a deeper target. We ran geophysics across this license in middle of last year. And what it highlighted that through that sedimentary structure, there was a massive conductive anomaly. Now, what got us quite excited about that is, the structure it sits in is a sedimentary structure. And if you look around the world, all of the major copper deposits or copper mines around the world sit in a sedimentary structure. And not only do they sit in that type of structure, but the era as to when our structure was created was Proteozoic. Again, you look around the world, the African copper belt was a structure created during this time. And our structure now has this giant, geophysical anomaly that sits over it. Scale-wise, if you think that whole sub-basin is in the order of 200 odd square kilometres, think to another mine or another copper deposit which sits in a similar sedimentary structure. Kamoa and Kukula, third biggest mine in the world. You could fit that into that Hulk Basin 2.5 times. And so that's what sort of, makes it so exciting is these sedimentary targets. They have huge potential.
So the Hulk really could be quite incredible.
Could be.
Okay, now I think this is probably going to be related to a very fresh announcement very recently. You've mentioned the step-out drilling at Danvers has extended the strike considerably. Now, how do you think this mineralized footprint could become? But if you have something a little bit more solid, happy to hear it.
Well, one of the, if we sort of cycle back to what we did at Danvers during the spring campaign, we covered maybe, it was less than 200 meters of strike. And so, that was the start. That proved that there was super high grade resource. We saw some wonderful thicknesses. And so bringing the jewelry back up the site, it was all about, how do we start to demonstrate what the scale of this particular project could be. It has a historic estimate, which sits sort of over a portion of the license. That had 4 million tonnes at 3%. So, if you think that type of project, if that was in the back of Western Australia, it would have actually been mined by now. But that strike sort of sat over about 350 metres, maybe 400 metres in terms of strike length. The drilling that we've just done, we've now drilled, above and beyond it. We've almost, we've more than twice the strike of what people have seen today. And I think most importantly is, and not only have we now doubled strike, we've shown that there's a depth extension to it. And, we've just put a drill hole in, which is about 4 kilometres away along that structure. And the observations that we released today seem to show that there's certainly copper fluids in the system as far away as 4 kilometres.
Okay, so Danvers at twice the strike length and Hulk with 200 square kilometres. Yes, we're looking at substantial finds out here potentially.
Oh, look, I think so. The area is it is super fertile. If you look at surface, and if we sort of roll back to what we did last year at surface, we were taking 60% copper rocks from surface, which is near on unheard of. That effectively pure chalcocite. I remember there was one instance when we were in the chopper and we were sort of navigating between prospects. So you sort of you're crab walking up a cliff, and the entire cliff is just stained green. And I've done that with iron ore prospecting, but I certainly haven't done it with copper. It opened a few eyes, that's for sure.
And green, so that'd be the oxidization of the copper on the surface.
Correct. It's the malachite mineral which sits there, so you can see copper. It's wonderful.
That'd be the one semester I took on geology, which I didn't actually take. I'm actually just making that up. Speaking of being in the chopper, so a drone based now, it's a magnetotelluric, so an MT geophysical survey is underway. What insights are you hoping this will provide, and how will it shape the next phase of exploration?
So that prospect, you sort of mentioned in your intro, was one of our recent acquisitions, that particular area. Back in July of last year, we actually flew the entire lease with the MT technology, and it gave us some really good insights, certainly in the Hulk sedimentary basin and some of those volcanics, which sort of feed into Hulk. But what it showed us was, that the magnetics show us where the structures are. The conductivity obviously is looking for a mineral that reacts to electricity. So running that across the Danvers system, which has yet been untested by geophysics, will actually help us to expand that strike and actually identify new areas on that lease for copper mineralization.
Okay, I could pick that up. So, this market is always hungry for news and always hungry for new things. They're expecting assay results to take within minutes when they cannot take that long. But how long have we got assay results from the current drilling and surface sampling programs?
So drilling-wise, we've had the first and second batches are off at the lab right now. As you say, they used to take minutes. They don't anymore. Somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks. So, we are anticipating assay results, towards the end of August. And once that, I suppose, first assay drops, if we drill all the way out until the end of September, end of October, you'll see assay results from here until the end of the year, potentially into January.
So if those results do come back as expected, what's it going to mean for the next half year to 12 months for Ray with regards to the development milestones?
I think if we break that into two, at Danvers, our sort of 6 to 12 month goal is to start delineating what a potential resource could be. There's a historic estimate there of 4 million tonnes. We've already more than doubled the strike. We've identified new areas, new pods. After this drilling this year, we'll have a really informed guide as to what we need to do to take that through potential maiden mineral resource. And then at Hulk, this really is the discovery stage. We're using all of that data we've got from mineralization at surface. We're using all of that data we've got from the geophysics, and we're currently plotting a regional exploration campaign looking for that thick sedimentary hosted copper.
Okay, and so, well, we're almost wrapped up now, and I know that we are pushed for time. So you've recently raised over $14 million. You've strengthened your board. Now, the reason John Hancock is quite an amazing American figure, the first person to sign the Declaration of Independence. Is he as vital to the board as the announcements are thinking, or am I just talking that up a bit too much?
No, I think if you look at John Hancock, he's probably got the most famous name in Australian mining. He, in his own right, has done a plethora of wonderful things, made some significant good investments off his own back. Having someone like John come into the board with his network, his contacts and his experience is a huge step change for us. It really bolsters and enhances what the board could be, which is, what every company should be doing.
So specifically with regards to Whitecliffe, how does that take you into the future?
I think, one of the benefits that John has had is, he has been around the world numerous times and has sat at numerous tables with all the right people. So one thing it has opened up is, Whitecliffe is already on the radar of anyone who's looking at copper results. The results we gave back in spring were world-class. Having someone like John who's experienced and has the connections, it will open more doors than have already been done.
Excellent. And finally now, what key catalysts should investors be watching out for over the remainder of 2025?
Results, and more results. The benefit of us having this conversation now is we're 4 or so weeks into our drilling campaign. So things are happening, things are moving, and we're starting to see sulfides coming out of the ground, copper mineralization. But that also means that assays are in the works. So we'll start to see assays from the back end of this month, early September, continue to see drilling updates. I think one of the most exciting bits that people are looking forward to is we'll shortly see some core coming out of Hulk. So that coupled with assays through to the back end of this year and beyond is certainly an exciting 6, 7, 8 months for Whitecliffe.
That Hulk sounds like that could be something that is really talked about for a long time to come.
Yeah, no, I think so. Everyone's waiting for it now. This is the maiden campaign into Hulk. It's virgin. So having drill rods in there, we'll see something very, very shortly, and I can't wait.
Well, it's a good problem to have of spacing out those sorts of announcements. It's a good problem to have of thinking about just what sort of quality the assays are going to come back with and what sort of size Hulk is going to be, just how big some of these strikes actually are. It's a sensational set of problems that you've got in front of you and a half-decent board to go along with it, with the addition of John Hancock there as well.
Yep, no, couldn't agree more.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us today. Troy Whittaker, Managing Director of Whitecliffe Minerals, that's ASX-listed exploration company, some excellent copper projects in Canada. Thank you very much for joining us, Troy.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I'm James Whelan, and you have been watching smallcaps.com.au.